I came out of each exam thinking that was cool, thinking that was good, thinking that was easy. So I was expecting a first class. What I wasn't expecting was that would be very few. So I wasn't expecting my first class to be very unique. I just thought it was going to be okay, just first class, like many people. But very few people made first class in my set. I think we were only five first class students. I was the only girl. Then there were four guys who made first class. Hi, my name is Deborah Osinowo, Ni ADEBAYO. I'm a lawyer. I currently work with the Office of Audit and Investigations, UNDP, United Nations Development Program, based in New York. Yes, and I'm here because I got a first class in law school. I attended University of Ibadan for my undergraduate degree. I did not make a first class in UI. I wasn't. I think I wasn't as the time. I didn't have the interest. I wasn't. It wasn't a goal, and I really didn't know how to study. I think up until about 300 level, I didn't know how to study. I wasn't. Everything came very easy to me, so I wasn't targeting stuff. But I eventually started learning how to study. My law school campus was Abuja. I won five awards. I won General First Class Award. I got, I believe, second best student in professional ethics and skills. I got third best in property law practice. And then I got two awards for being the overall best graduating female. One was from the NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, and the other one was from the National Association of Female Judges in Nigeria. That was 2019 backlog set actually, but then call to bar was 2020. How did I prepare mentally for law school? I honestly don't think I prepared much ahead of time. For my year, law school went a bit different. It wasn't like the regular calendar that law school had been following previously. So I graduated, like we left school, I believe in April. Was it April? And then we're to resume law school in May or something like that. It was just like 1 month interval. Everything was really fast. I think eventually it was about 6 weeks. There was a delay, but I didn't have enough time to study, to prepare, to do anything. I attempted to, but really I didn't. So I think I just, okay, I think mentally I did prepare in terms of like refusing to sort of like be discouraged or to like take in bad news, right? Lots of people are always afraid of law school. So I refused to allow that get to me. I was like, no, this is a walk in the park. One thing I always said to myself was that I was going to do so many more exams in my life, like that are going to be more intense. So like law school was going to be a walk in the park, which it was for me eventually. So mentally, I think I did prepare by sort of just like focusing on the positive and not the negative. How was law school for me? Was it what I expected? I think so because I always, like I just said, I believed that law school was going to be very easy for me. I believed that it wasn't going to be the most difficult thing I was going to do academically in my life. So, and that exactly is the case, right? Having completed law school and gone for grad school, I don't think that law school was too much, to be honest. You have to study and do everything, but I think it was okay. So, law school was I think it was really good. I remember after finishing and stuff before our results came out, I went to Twitter and I was like, law school was one of the best times in my life. And the results weren't out. I didn't know anything at the time, but I just felt like, oh, I really loved this period. So law school was not traumatic for me. I think it was really good and it was what I expected. What was my preparation process like? Did I have a special reading method? I'm going to say that I wasn't quite like some people in terms of how detailed they were with like reading methods. Some people had like very strict, policies like, oh, read 8 hours a day, read 10 hours, and people did it, but I wasn't like that. I didn't have like strict number of hours that I needed to read in a day. I just tried to my method was to always try to cover what it was that we did in class that day, because I think you understand a thing better when you revise it within 24 hours, right? So it's still fresh. It's like you're just trying to get very familiar with the concept. You already heard it in class. It was discussed, and then now again you go and view it right with your eyes and just like take it in again. So that was my strategy. Always try to go over whatever I was taught in class. And usually there was always like some questions kind of like preempting the next class, some study guide questions, right, for the next class the next day. So I always try to prepare as well as much as possible, just kind of like do a cursory glance and preparation for the next class. So that was really just my strategy. I didn't have specific hours. Usually, I think it's still a question about how will go how my day went about. But yeah, I think that that's really just my preparation process. What was a typical day in law school like for me, and how did I plan my time? So, like I just said, I didn't spend hours. I didn't allocate specific hours for reading every day. I was just more interested in understanding what it was that we had covered in class. So if we learnt on X today in class, I just try to ensure that, okay, I really understand, right, what X is about. So if I have to go look at a textbook, look at another textbook, I was just really trying to understand concepts and ideas. That was what I was trying to do. Not to cram, not to rush ahead. I was just really trying to get it into my system and understand it as a living, like law is living. Yeah, so that's what I was trying to do. My typical day, I'm not too sure what time I woke up anymore. um, so I'd wake up in the morning. I think I always did my devotion first. Then I'll try to read. I don't think I ever read beyond 1 hour in the morning before time for classes, I guess. I can't quite remember at what time classes began. Maybe I did more than 1 hour, I can't remember. But I'll try to read a bit, study a bit, then we'll go for classes. Then we have like a 30-minute tea break in between. Go out, maybe get a snack or something. Then we return after the class ends. I think the class is end around 1:30 p.m. Then we'll have some break until 4 p.m. when you had to join your assigned group study, right? The law school designated group study. And some people completely ignored it. Some of us tried to attend. Like, I mean, I went there because people said that, oh, they take attendance and stuff. And I just figured, well, maybe I can learn something here. So that was always 4 to 6 p.m. And then I'll usually maybe take a walk around. On I think one day a week there was Class Fund Fellowship, Christian Lawyers Fellowship of Nigeria. So I went for that. Then I'll get dinner, and after dinner I'll try to study, and then I'll go to sleep. That was typically what it was. I didn't read at night, and I think I'll also talk about that later. But I wasn't a night reader, and I just stuck to that. Did I attend all my classes from day one to the end? Absolutely, I did. I attended all my classes. I actually have an exception though. I traveled and I probably missed a day, I think just one day, because my sister was getting married. So I left Abuja, I went home. And I don't regret that one. But I tried to cover it up as soon as I got back. I tried to, quickly read what that was that I missed and everything. But generally, I always went to class each day. I mean, my roommate wasn't interested in going to class every day. I don't think it paid off, right? So I think it's always best to go to class every day. Like, there's a lot that really just like gets in the classes. I was in certain study groups and I would recommend it for only one reason. I'll say the first thing is if something doesn't serve you, stop it. If it's not working the way it should, stop it. Like, don't become fixated on one thing, on the idea of what a study group should be, even though your study group isn't working. I wasn't running after study groups. I think it just worked out. So the first study group that sort of worked out, well, like I said, there's first the official study group. So the school assigns you to certain study groups, and you have like your leader and the assistant leader, and they take attendance and everything. I think it helps. Sometimes it can, there can be a deviation into some arguments, like people disagree, and it can get crazy. And that's sometimes one disadvantage of study groups, right? If you are easily swayed by people's opinions, people will have different theories of what is accurate, what isn't, and you definitely don't want that to be a distraction for you. So, but there's a school study group, which I was quite, I tried to do. And occasionally, if there was some unnecessary stuff going on, I'll just like be doing something on my own, maybe trying to work a past question or something. But the other study group, my school, I went to University of Ibadan, a couple of students, when we just resumed, they were very zealous at that point. So we were like, oh, let's do a study group. And so we gathered together, but that barely held, probably just held twice, and everybody just like went their separate ways. But I think about five or so of us, kind of like just tried to remain. And went to tell, I think was it the BGS back on when UI or assistant or the second best graduating student. It was the one mostly facilitating that. And so five of us just tried to continue, very few of us here. And we did that for a few weeks. And I think eventually it fizzled out. But I think it was pretty helpful because the guy who was leading tutorials was very detailed and everything. And I had this partial study group again. A few of us also really from my school back in UI. It was just in the evenings occasionally, just like I think less than 1 hour some days, and we would just like discuss certain things. I think it was helpful because it was, like I said earlier, law is living, right? So you don't want it to just be a text like, oh, your lecturer says this, then you write this down, and that's all that it is. You want to get familiar with it. You want to sort of just like get used to it as what it is, right? So you talk about it, you think, right? You kind of like make it a critical reasoning, stuff. So that was what the practical discussion was about, just like getting more familiar with the concepts, talking about it, trying to apply it into real life. So that was it. Then towards the end, towards the time we're planning for bar finals, I began to study with one of my friends, and I think that was very helpful. He was also a very detailed person, so he always like had strategies. It was so detailed. Sometimes we would both say, okay, we're trying to do a draft, and would get to a point, it just would continue. That's just the point. He was like very persistent. So I think that also spurred me on as well. So I think study groups could be helpful, but don't stick to it too rigidly as it has to be a group, it has to be this way, it has to be that way. The point is just that you're trying to bring what you've learned to life. Did I have friends in law school and would I recommend making friends there? I had friends in law school, um, but I don't think I would necessarily recommend going to law school to make friends. Um, because when your goal is to make friends, you may try a little too hard to be nice, to be pleasing, right? You want to make some compromises. Sometimes you're like, okay, let's go somewhere, let's do something, and I don't think you need that. If you have some previous classmates or friends from your school in your from your university in your campus, wonderful, just hang out with them mostly, right? And gradually you probably make friends with other people, like maybe your roommates, somebody you happen to sit next to in class. People tend to repeat the same seats actually. So, if you're sitting somewhere, there's always usually going to be someone who is always sitting in front of you, or behind you or next to you, and gradually you probably just become friends with them, or maybe in the library when you go to the library. So I think as a matter of occasion it's very cool to make friends, but don't go looking for it especially. Like I had friends mostly from class fund, from the Christian Lawyers Fellowship, and that was because we fellowship together twice a week, and we organized some events sometimes. So it happened, right? It was very organic. So I think organic friendships wonderful, but don't try too hard to make this a social ground because it's not. Was I in a relationship during law school? I was. I was in a relationship during law school, and so we're doing long distance because he wasn't a lawyer, he wasn't in law school. So he was over in another state. So we just used to have phone calls. And I think it was encouraging because, there was someone who was there to sort of be like, oh, you can do it, oh, it's fine, and stuff like that, and just or distract me with some other information and news. And I think it can be pretty interesting because I remember there was this one day I was in the library and I saw his message and it seemed, I read it to be urgent. Like, can you take a call? I can't remember how he phrased it. And so I quickly stepped out of the library thinking, oh, this is very important. And then he called me and he just, started talking about regular stuff, very regular stuff. And I was so I guess you all just have to come to an understanding on maybe like your time, your plans at specific times, and just say, I'm studying right now. Can this wait? But I think it was definitely good. He was praying for me a lot and even fasting on my behalf during when I had that finals. So, so I think it was a good one. Yeah. Was it all books for me, or did I also take time to have fun? I had fun for sure. I actually really enjoyed law school. But I guess this is where the question on what is fun comes to play. I remember before I resumed law school, there was this person who was a senior, so to speak, back then from University of Ibadan, and she had she had outlined, how our day used to go. I can't remember in details, but I remember she watched a movie every day. Like she did say that. I was like, that's very interesting. Now, I don't think I really saw movies when I was in law school. I may have seen one or two, and I didn't feel like I missed out. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I think I had fun the way I enjoyed. So I told you I had friends. I was very involved in class fun, and it was just really wonderful. So that was my fun. So I would think if you're very involved, for example, in something like class fun, and then you think you're going to see a movie every day and study well, I'm very concerned for you. So I guess eventually you have to determine what fun is, what you're going to do outside of like school and outside of reading, right? So I had fun, and once in a while, I think there was this one time a couple of us from UI, a couple of girls, went into the city, and went, to a church, hang out and stuff. Everything is church anyway. So I had fun as much as I could. It was nice. How did I read during externship? I think that's good. I think externship was like a deal break. Like was the real stuff for me. Externship was really what brought everything together. Like I said, my law school was it happened a bit differently. It wasn't like the regular calendar of previous years of law school. So we began, I think the regular calendar back then used to start maybe September or was in November. We began in April or was it May? And just the whole thing, in fact, it was kind of simultaneous also with another set. So while they were on externship, we were on campus. And then when they came back to campus, we went on externship. So externship came up much earlier for us. And not, or was it, how was it? Was it much earlier or much later? I can't remember, but it came up at a time that was just not regular. So for me, externship, I did my externship at Kenna Partners. And it was really good. It was really good. I was very interested in studying during my externship and also learning practically. I was just like down to have it all. And back then in my firm where I did my externship, there were several first class students who were currently doing their NYSC. So they had just finished law school, and they were currently doing their NYSC year. And I think the overall best graduating male student, Kudus, was there. Sotoye, best in criminal law, was there, and a couple of other people. Peace Adeleke was there, and that was very helpful. So and the firm had a great policy of sort of like encouraging tutorials. So the NYSC associates were like, oh, trying to organize tutorials for us among themselves. We're only two externs actually posted there. And I was very interested in everything they had to give. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Also, there was Ken. I remember it was Ken that gave me some strategies that really helped me in professional ethics. Like, what an award! So I think the externship was really good. I remember that the tip that Ken told me, which I'm going to pass across, is to learn all your RPC rules for professional conduct in ethics. I think it really comes in handy. It comes in handy not just for ethics class, but also for criminal and other classes. So if you know all the rules, you're on the right path, right? It helps also if you know the sub rules, but I mean that's not everyone can do that. But you should know all the rules. So you want to start practicing very early. If you wait till that finals time, it will be a little difficult. But as soon as you can, just begin to recite every day, right? From rule one, learn rule one. The next day, repeat it, add rule two, and just like go at your pace. And I think it was very helpful to me. So externship was really good. So you can also just like insist and just sort of like have your firm do better when it comes to externship. What advice and tips do I have for preparing for the bar finals? I think that preparing for bar finals is really the entire year long. It's not just like a couple of weeks or months before the bar finals. I think that anything you're doing right from what week one, let's just say week four, right? Let's say you take a while to set. Really, you shouldn't take a while to settle in. Just start reading, because law school is pretty bulky, the syllabus. So If you miss some days, you may find it very hard to go back to cover those days. That's why the strategy is, as much as possible, each day read what you were taught that day, because it makes a difference, right? You may not have as much time. It's not like university, so you probably won't have as much time to kind of go back and just say, "Oh, I'm just trying to read this topic now," because you have the topics of that day. Like every day, it's just like a lot more things added to you. So I would say that to prepare for the bar finals, you definitely want to read every day from the very start. Your each day is your preparation for the bar finals. I also think you should prepare with past questions. But I'm going to say that you should prepare with past questions at the right time. I knew someone who was working with past questions from the very start. And I was thinking maybe that's just a strategy if that works, but I didn't think it was very helpful because it read, I would say read the past questions so well that he knew the answers. Like if you were in a study group and you called the particular question out, it could almost complete the question for you and call the answer. I don't think that's very helpful. I think that you want to understand what the concepts are, then test your understanding. That's what the past questions are there for, right? So that was what I did. I began using past questions somewhat towards the end, and I had this particular notebook, maybe a couple of notebooks, and I'll time myself. People fail a lot based on timing. People are very bad with timing in law school. So every time you're reading, you want to work with time. So I'll time myself the exact time that bar finals will give you, right? And I would answer whether it's the MCQ part or the essay part. And I'll answer completely like I was in the exam hall, right? Without checking anything, without stopping, without any distractions. And when I was done, I'll take a red pen and go over and see if I was wrong, if I was right, and just like mark myself. And I think it was pretty interesting to see that over time, when you flipped my book, if you started from the beginning, you see a lot of red pen corrections and stuff. I did them myself. And over time, as you flipped, you said that, oh, you could barely find any correction. It was getting very clear and good. So that was showing that, okay, I now understood. I was implementing the things I had seen. So that's what I think past questions should do for you. It should test your knowledge and make you better. So work a lot with past questions. I think also there was this thing that really helped. There was a student that had past questions from recent years. So the most common ones were past questions for the regular bar finals, right? That everyone takes across the years, from I don't know 2001, different years, right? But in this case, this person had the questions that were also given to people who had to resit the exams. And I think we also worked with that. So we worked with several years of past questions. And I think that that was very helpful for me as a person. So if you can do that, I encourage you to. How did I feel when I checked my results and saw first class? Was I expecting it? I felt very elated. I was very happy. I was expecting it. I was definitely expecting it because I felt like I came out of each exam thinking that was cool, thinking that was good, thinking that was easy. So I was expecting a first class. What I wasn't expecting was that would be very few. So I wasn't expecting my first class to be very unique. I just thought it was going to be okay, just first class, like many people. But very few people made first class in my set. I think there were only five first class students. I was the only girl. Then there were four guys who made first class. Um, and yeah, so I think that I was expecting the first class. I was very happy when I saw it, and over time it became clear. Either that same night, it came out on our result came out July 3. That's my dad's birthday. So it either became clear that night or the next morning that I was the only best graduating female student, and now we're only five in total that made first class. So that was it. When and how did I find out that I was the best graduating student female? And how did I feel? I either found out the night of July 3rd when the result came out, or early in the morning, July 4th. Yeah, but it was all like a very crazy time because the news was everywhere. So it spread like wildfire. It was so fast. The news had a life of its own. The news was just like running ahead. And, yeah, it was a bit crazy. I think all the lecturers back in University of Ibadan got to know about it. People, students knew, everyone knew. Obviously, I told my family and everybody was happy, but then they themselves began to hear from every other source, right? It was a bit crazy. Like, random people will call my dad, people I'm like, oh, almost like informing him. And it's like, okay, I already know. But it was interesting. I think the news became, I don't know, the news really took speed on its own. I was seen everywhere, covered by news media and stuff. And so it was a chaotic but blessed time, I would say, just finding out that I was the best graduating student female, and that I made it first class. So I felt really good. And then after a couple of days, I was overwhelmed because it was everywhere all the time. People were calling me, congratulating me, sending text messages, people from primary school. It was weird, but it was good all the same. What were my best and worst moments or experiences in law school? Honestly, I think this is odd. I don't know. Yeah, I think, like I said, I traveled to my sister's wedding. That was a memorable experience, and that was not in law school. In law school, I think that just my first day was probably memorable. I think I entered the class when it had started. The lecture was already in progress. I was in Abuja campus, and I just everywhere seemed so full, so I just kept walking to the back of the lecture theatre, and I saw this one seat, and I asked this lady, and she was like, she thinks someone is there, but I could just like sit for a while. Her name is Emma, and then we became friends. She finished from University of Abuja, so I think that was just like a memorable experience as well, just like that first, someone offering me a seat. But I don't think I particularly have a worst or best moment. I just know that I really did enjoy law school. I enjoyed studying actually. You know, um, I used to go to the library, not too rigidly or strictly, but I just tried to go there to use textbooks. And for example, I had corporate law. There was this one textbook I didn't like how the author wrote, to be honest. But I still used it because I wanted to get a different perspective. So I would use the textbook I like, and say, okay, this is what this author is saying. But instead of closing it and saying, okay, that's all that there is about that, I would usually go to the other textbook and then read it from a different perspective, right? So now I wasn't going to be regurgitating what one author believes. I was going to be kind of like working with a fusion. So I really understood the concepts. So that was mostly it for law school. Do I think law school is overrated? I don't think so. I don't think it's overrated. If you're hearing bad news everywhere about people failing, about it being so intense, about there being an ambulance outside of the exam halls and people being rushed out, well, you just have to change what you're listening to. I think that's why there are, outlets like this for you to be encouraged and to hear good things. Like I've been telling you, and I really mean it, that law school was really fun for me. So you can listen to people who had a really good time instead of listening to people who had a bad time. I don't think law school is overrated. What role did my support system, family, friends, mentors play in my success? Yeah, I think they were very helpful. Like I said, my fiance then was praying and fasting for me during the finals. My family was very supportive. I almost feel like he deserved their own interview as well, from their perspective on what my law school experience was like. My mom will always tell you that, who had been saying it from the very start, that I really want to make it first class in law school. And that's true. I wanted. So I told you that I didn't have that goal back in uni. I wasn't determined about that. But this time I was. And I think that my family and friends and stuff, they were all very supportive in ways that they could. They understood when I told them that I wasn't going to be very active on WhatsApp. I wasn't going to be very active on any family chats and stuff. I tried sometimes, but I really wasn't bothered. I think they didn't bother me with any news, any responsibilities. So I was pretty much free to sort of focus on school. I think they prayed for me, they encouraged me. So it was a good time. So I think you want to be very clear with your family on what the expectations should be, right? Explain to them that this is not like university; it's going to be different. So you can't always be chatting. You can't reply messages. Stop sending me memes. You know. So did I watch Young VIP TV when I was in law school? If so, how did they impact or inspire me? I did actually. I did, and I would not have known. I did not been that. When the organizer actually reached out to me recently and I clicked on, inviting me to do this. And I clicked on the channel and I was like, oh, YouTube lets you know if you've watched a video before, there's a red line on them. It was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, this is the particular channel. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, I watched a couple of videos here. I think it was on this channel I got to know of Naomi. I think that's her name. I don't. I know she worked at Alex. I don't know if where she is now, but she was the best graduating student. I think the year before me, she went to Bayelsa campus. I remember reading and listening to her talk about her experience. I remember just like I think I watched a couple of other people as well. So yes, this was very inspiring. I think so. Glad to be able to come full circle to participate in this. Is there anything additional I would like to say? I think I mostly got it. I gave the strategy of working with past questions, trying ensuring that you understand what it is that you're studying, um, utilizing your externship very well. And when I say very well, it will be good for you to read during externship, but I think it's more helpful, which is what I've been trying to convey in general, to discuss, right? To call things aloud, right? To have someone ask you a quick question, and you reply, so that's what some associates could do during your externship, to have people just keep you on your toes, right? And to just make that law, what you're learning, a part of yourself. So that's what I would say is very helpful when it comes to law school. So yes, this has been really fun honoring this and getting to talk about my experience in law school. It's been a while. It's been my law school experience was really 2019, even though Cultivar was 2020. So it's been a couple of years, but I think I just still have very good things to say about law school and just like the experience. And I think you'll have fun too. Another random tip, you're given, I can't remember what the name of the book is, logbooks, yeah, during your externship. I think I would just advise you to try to fill the logbooks every day because if you wait till the very end, oh my gosh, and you're trying to impute, for each day what you did, what you learned, it's going to be stressful. So just try to fill it each day. Try to learn and practice and recite the RPCs each day. Try to, just get in, just take your drafting very seriously. Draft, draft, draft. Somebody once said something. Don't deceive yourself. You can never read a draft. So don't ever tell yourself that, oh, I'm reading right now. Oh, there's this place here. I got to this part in the textbook where there's a draft. There's a request to write a letter, a request to write a motion. And you're like, oh, let me just read it. That's, you're not doing anything. Every point you get to where there's a draft, stop reading, take a notebook and a pen, and draft, always write, always write. You need to practice and practice a lot with time. And I'm sure you'll have a very good experience. Law school is going to be like one small child's play compared with all the great things you do. Thank you for having me. This has been good.